Welcome to Sports Guyz, another episode. This is our weekend recap, January 21st. We waited till Tuesday to record this week because we wanted to get in the great college game that happened last night. How you doing, Robbie?
Oh, doing great. Doing great. Short week. It's snowing outside. Amazing football weekend.
I enjoyed every
Good
bit of
stuff.
it. I got to see a lot of the games with you, which was really cool, you and the boys, and got to celebrate
Celebrated.
their birthday, and it just couldn't have been better. Then came back to this great game last night, so we definitely have a lot to cover tonight. What were your big takeaways from the weekend in these 5 epic games?
I think mostly it was what we thought was going to happen for the most part. I of course, the weather really affected several of the NFL games pretty dramatically, and I think a lot of the stars were stars. The coaches did a good job for the most part, and it was pretty exciting stuff. It's good.
I think for me, there were a couple of things that are surprising, but they shouldn't be surprising. There are themes that are coming out. First one is in the NFL, the 4 teams that are left have 0 turnovers in the playoffs. And what was interesting is all 4 of them got outgained offensively by the other team. So they were the lesser team offensively, but ended up winning because they won the turnover battle. And so it seems like to me, we always talk about the turnover battle, but it seems like even more than ever in these playoffs, the turnover battle is really almost the whole shooting match. And that's the trend that I see. On the college side, we talked about the talent would win out in the end with Ohio State. We both picked Ohio State to win. Me by 7, you by 14. They came in at 11. And, I think that was about what everyone was expecting. I think Notre Dame battled a lot harder than some people thought. I thought they were going to do that. I really thought it'd be a close game because they just were on fire. I think they're really well coached. They fight hard. They kind of came in as the hot team, but in the end, Ohio State's the better team from the better conference, and they just ended up winning just through pure talent and brute force, I guess you could say. So those are my big takeaways. In terms of this NFL playoffs and the 4 teams we have left, I think this is going to be really exciting. You got Chiefs hosting again, 3rd year in a row. They've had the Ravens in, they've had the Bills in. They always dispatch both of them. We'll get into who we think are going to win these games coming up, but I think it may be a little bit different this time. I think the Bills are kind of the hot team in the NFL right now, and I really, really believe in their offensive line. So we shall see. But any other themes come out of the 5 games for you?
Really enjoyed the 12-team college playoff. I thought that was a big success. I think it could get improved a lot, but I think it was such a big departure from the pageantry of a lot of the bowl games, and then kind of diminished a little bit the importance of the championship games for the conferences, but at the same time it added a whole new March Madness kind of feel to it. So I thought it was great. I thought it was excellent.
Are you buying into the narrative that the SEC is down and the Big Ten is the best conference now? And Colin Cowherd talks about all the big programs are up north now, and all of them have the most money and they have the biggest fan bases. Ohio State has 60,000 students, and they have all these boosters and everything, and that the SEC's done, and that's why Saban got out. Or are you not buying that?
I don't think I'm buying that. I think there's something to the fact that the SEC was always dominant, and now there's parity. That I'll buy, and I believe there is such a thing as some of the SEC schools haven't fully opened their checkbook. It'd be pretty eye-popping if Texas A&M did, and Texas. I think there are now 2 conferences that can compete with each other, whereas I think the Big Ten was in my mind lower than the SEC for the last 15 years.
His argument is that the SEC was always paying players, and now that it's legal to do so, their advantage is off the table. And now, not only that, but that they're way behind the money game from Texas A&M, Texas,
for now,
Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. He's saying that those 5 programs I just named, along with Notre Dame, those 6 are going to be the dominant teams, for the next 10 years because they have the offers. So.
I think it's going to be South versus the North. I think it's going to be Big Ten versus the SEC every year. I think it's going to be a really cool rivalry. Whereas I think that's a much better product than when the SEC was just bulldozing everybody. This is much better. Do I think the SEC is dead? Absolutely not. Do I think that the SEC is going to steamroll the Big Ten every year? No. They're equals now, and I don't think they were before. So I think it goes way too far to say the SEC is dead and all this hyperbole. I think what's happened is teams have caught up to them, and they have a realistic shot of beating them
But do you
consistently.
buy the idea that Texas comes into the SEC and is the big dog already, and the reason they are is because they have the big checkbook? Do you buy that idea, or
Yeah, but at the same time, these are the same people saying that are saying that the North is now superior to the South in football, and it's too much. It's too far to go that way. I think the Big Ten has arrived and is now the big heavyweight with the SEC, and I think there have been times where the Big Ten was up there, but it couldn't stay up there for long. I think it can now because of money and NIL and a lot of the advertisers. So
I'll be interested to see what happens next year and the year after. I mean, they're saying that Georgia's going to go into a rebuilding period now, and that Alabama's already in a rebuilding. They're going to lose Milroe, and I don't
I
know.
don't
We'll
think so.
see.
Did you see? Did you see Georgia's freshman wide receiver? There are players on these teams that they just didn't have a great season because they didn't have great quarterbacks. But those things ebb and flow, and I think Will Howard ended up being really good, and I'm not sure that he was like that all year long, but I think he kind of held back Ohio State a bit until that Michigan loss and something ignited, and I saw him definitely go up a notch in talent level, or at
Mhm.
least his performance. So I think what I'm hearing people say about the SEC is dead or is no longer king. I think there's two kings. So I think it's going to be a really wild clash over the next 10 years.
I agree. I agree. I'm with you. I'm telling you what Colin Cowherd was saying. I'm with you.
Yeah, no, I heard it too.
I think there's two conferences and there's everybody else. And I think
Yep.
ACC and Big 12 are kind of slightly behind the other two, and I'm not sure they're going to catch up. They don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have the facilities, they don't have the recruiters, they don't have the
They also
coaches.
don't prioritize football like that. Like they want to be good in all sports. They want to be good in academics. They want to be good in a lot of different areas. As a university, they want to have good football, but they don't care if it's national championship football. Most ACC teams, Wake Forest, Virginia, Georgia Tech, they want to have every now and then a special season where they're competitive, but they don't need national championship or bust every year. It's just not going to be the way it is.
That's right. So
As
you go,
universities, they have different priorities.
they go 9-3 and they're delighted.
They're happy. They're going to a good bowl game.
Yeah.
In a special year, really special year, they might make the playoff, but they don't expect to do anything in the playoff.
And then you notice on the NFL side, you have a couple themes. You've got the good coaches, the good quarterbacks, the teams that have defense versus don't have defense, the teams that can run the ball versus not run the ball. It's all the simple stuff, winning in the trenches, blocking and tackling. That's what it looks like to me, is that, fundamentally football has not really changed that much. And the teams that can do the simple stuff and do the fundamentals are winning on Sunday.
Right.
And the better coaches are winning and the better quarterbacks are winning. So that's what we're seeing. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at these games. We're going to get into break them down for you, and then we'll get into what the bracket looks like going forward. All right, we want to take a moment to bring a special message to you from our sponsor of tonight, and that is Newgenics with their product Total T. And Total T is a product that is made of a natural culinary herb, which is Tresnor. And Tresnor is a product that actually gives you 53% more energy, 48% more drive, 44% more muscle build, better sleep, and better repair of your body when you're sleeping. This is a reaction to what happens to most men when they hit 40 or over, and that is that their testosterone levels dip, and it's a natural thing. And so all of us who are over 40, like Rob and me, need this type of product to help us give a little boost. So Robbie, tell us a little bit about the product. You've been on it for about 5 weeks now. What do you think?
I've really enjoyed it. This product has done a lot. I've felt excellent. My energy level is noticeably higher. One thing that I was surprised at pleasantly was the middle of the day when you get that lull. I'm not getting that. I'm real clear in the middle of the day, and honestly, it's been one of the coolest things. Put on a little weight over the holidays, even though I was still taking this, but I started eating more sensibly, and I've dropped a couple pounds since. So I'm kind of getting back to normal. And this is an amazing product. It really makes me feel good. It makes me feel energy. I'm sleeping really well. I'm sleeping through the night. I was having a lot of trouble with my sleep last fall. So it's been a real awesome thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've had a similar experience. I think I've seen my sleep improve tremendously. I'm getting the in the sleep repair to my body. When I get little nicks and things like that, it's repairing a lot faster than it used to. I'm the same way. I'm not getting that afternoon lull. I'm feeling tremendous energy all day long, which is really great. And I don't know, it's just been a fantastic product for me, and I'm glad it's been the same for you.
Yeah, it
So,
has.
so all you guys who are listening tonight, subscribers, check out Newgenics Total T. You can find it on the internet. You can actually find it at newgenicssamples.com. And you can get a 14-day free sample. They'll send it straight to your home. You can try it yourself and tell us what you think. Drop us a comment.
You'll feel
Thanks.
great if you do.
Thanks so much. All right, this is our weekend recap, January 21st. CFB and NFL playoffs heat up. You see some really great photos here of the Lombardi Trophy, and then you see the four winning players on their teams. You have Mahomes with another magic pass in that game. You have Josh Allen romping for one of his 2 rushing touchdowns. You have Jayden Daniels, the rookie, pulling off the miracle against the Lions. And then, of course, in my opinion, one of the top 2 running backs in football with Saquon Barkley with the Eagles. And so you got the 4 winning players there. Those are the final 4 teams that are left that will be competing for the Super Bowl this weekend. That's going to be really exciting. And then on the right there, of course, you see the college football trophy that was handed out to the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're all celebrating there in the picture, handing it around player to player, and they had a big victory over Notre Dame, which we'll break down. So any initial thoughts about the last 4 teams left on the NFL side?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's the 4 best teams, but it's the 4 teams that played the best at the end. So congrats to all of them. They all had impressive paths. They beat really good teams to get there. They overcame adversity, whether it was injuries or, players go down or not performing or what have you. And they're really done an amazing job of getting themselves into this position. And congrats to all of them. And their fan bases are going crazy, and it's hilarious. And it's just so much fun. I love it.
Are you in agreement that the Commanders have by far the worst roster of these 4? And that what Jaden Daniels is doing is kind of miraculous as a rookie?
I think it's comparable to the Chiefs. I think its offense is a little better than the Chiefs, and the defense is a little worse than the Chiefs, or considerably worse. So a little bit, yeah. I think the 2 worst rosters would probably be Buffalo and Washington.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the Eagles, I would say their weakest spot on their team is their quarterback, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of, as you know, and I really feel like he holds them back. And I feel like, the same thing happened with Goff this year. He really, in the big moments, made some huge mistakes. And I look at Jalen Hurts that way, and it looks to me like the Eagles kind of know that. And so they work around Hurts. They don't use him very much. And they use this incredible back that they have in Barkley. This is what it looks like to me, is that their game plan is often to work around Hurts and make sure he doesn't turn the ball over or do something stupid.
Smart.
Whereas you have some of these elite quarterbacks that couldn't win without their quarterback and have to go through him. So it's interesting. The other thing with Allen, you noticed that 3 years ago he was a turnover machine. He's not anymore. He's gone through all playoffs without a turnover yet. And they've really worked with him, and they've gotten him to the point where he's now a consistent player and doesn't make the big mistake in the big moment. So
They've limited his throwing,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore he throws fewer picks. And they've increased his running, a lot like Hurts, and therefore they're basically become running quarterbacks predominantly, and they throw secondarily. And both teams are here because they were able to rein in their quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Whereas you turn to Mahomes and Daniels to throw you out of a mess.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Very different.
Yeah, I mean, Daniels is making up for a roster that's incomplete right now. It will be. I think this team will get it right, but it's incomplete right now, and he's just doing superhuman things to take them places they didn't think they could go. That's the way I look at it. That game they played against the Lions, and we'll get into all the details of it, but was one of the more surprising, I think, NFL fans have seen in a long time. The fact that they could roll up 45 points on the road in Detroit against the team that everyone was picking for the Super Bowl was one of the more surprising results in a long time. And he just looked cool, calm, and collected the entire time. He is so poised for a 23-year-old kid. Like, I don't know where you coach that poise into somebody. I think it may be natural, his calmness. And then on the college side, of course, we talked about the talent disparity in our last show. And I think that came true. I think Notre Dame fought really hard. I knew they would. They're well coached. They can run the ball some, but in the end, Ohio State just has too many weapons and had too many answers for Notre Dame. They shut down the running game in the second half and eventually just took over. So let's look at that game. So Ohio State comes out on top 34-23, 13-point win, kind of took over in the second half. In terms of passing, Will Howard had a nice game, balanced game, 17 for 21, 231 with 2 touchdowns. He had a 99 QBR. You had on the rushing side, what surprised me is they far outrushed Notre Dame. I mean, it wasn't even
dramatically.
Close. Judkins, Howard, and Travion Henderson all had big games. Judkins had just like a coming out party in this game. I think his draft stock has gone up a lot with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he was dominant.
He also had a touchdown receiving, which was pretty crazy. Jeremiah Smith got started early in this game. He also had a touchdown. Ibuka, Tate, they have the best 3 wide receiver core in college football, and we knew that coming into the game. So on the Notre Dame side, Riley Leonard, unlike the first drive of the game, which we'll break down in a minute, but he ended up with 22 for 31 for 255 and 2 touchdowns. He had a pretty nice passing day, actually.
He was excellent,
which was kind of surprising. He had close to a 90 QBR. Rushing, he was the leading rusher, which is not good for them. That means they did not do the game plan that they needed to do, which was to run the ball.
Yeah,
the running game just after the first drive just disappeared. So when you have him being the leading rusher, Price with 13 and Jeremiah Love with 3 yards, that's a huge problem.
4 rushes for 3 yards.
Yeah, and then receiving, Greathouse continues to emerge. I mean, he was maybe the best player on the field last night. It was pretty crazy to watch. He was just total go-to guy for Notre Dame with 2 touchdowns.
He was the best Notre Dame offensive player, that's for sure.
For sure, yeah. He's become his go-to guy. So what were your overall thoughts about this game, breaking it down, looking at the stats?
So when you said they took control in the second half, they actually took control in the first half and then just kind of made a decision that they were just going to run the clock out, I think. So they scored on their first 4 possessions, Ohio State did, and they just kind of dominated completely all the way through the end of the third quarter. And then when the fourth quarter hit, Notre Dame started their comeback. So right around the fourth quarter. So really, I think Ohio State could have made this worse if they wanted to. I just think they made a calculation. Remember, what were the 2 biggest strengths of Notre Dame? Their offensive line is all NFL. They're bulldozers. And the second thing is their ability to take the ball away. And I felt like Chip Kelly thought, if I put the ball up in the air a lot, there's a lot higher likelihood of tip balls, takeaways, stuff like that. Notre Dame's also really good at creating fumbles. They punch at the ball a lot and stuff like that. So, and they rip at the ball. So I think they were comfortable with just sort of safe offensive plays after they had a nice 31-7 lead. The most impressive drive in the whole game was actually Notre Dame's first drive, where they they rammed it down Ohio State's throat all the way down
And
the
what I
field.
didn't understand was why they didn't continue that. That was in our show
Well,
last week. We talked about the keys to the game, and one of the keys to the game for Notre Dame was, number one, to run the ball and win the rushing battle. Number two, to control the clock and not give Ohio State the ball. And number three, to bully them with their offensive line. Those three things. And that
yeah,
all happened on drive one and then
on
didn't
drive
happen
one.
against the game.
However, Ohio State started to crowd the box and take that away.
Right.
So,
Right.
that's why some of the numbers for Greathouse, I mean, until they started to connect with him, it was a disaster. Second quarter was dreadful. First quarter was dreadful after that nice first drive. So, first two quarters really were Ohio State was thumping them. Their defense was taking away anything they wanted to do, and offensively they were scoring at will. So it looked like it was just me a runaway freight train, really. But you could feel Ohio State let up a little. I think they felt like if we're going to gamble and throw the ball all over the yard, Notre Dame's going to get some picks and some turnovers. That's what they need to get going again. And sure enough, they did cause a fumble, which allowed them to go get some points and start to create a comeback. But that was in the third quarter.
So, and also they didn't get the turnovers. So Notre Dame, they didn't achieve any of the keys to the game that we talked about to win this
They had
game.
an important turnover that started a comeback, but it was too little too late. The gap had become so big that I think Ohio State took their foot off the gas, saying we just need to run the clock out. And I think they were smart in doing that. If they were winging the ball all over the place, trying to run the score up, there was a high likelihood Notre Dame was going to make them pay for that. So they stayed on the ground. They did a lot of running with Will Howard and with Judkins.
What were your thoughts about Judkins? I mean, we knew he was good, but
he was phenomenal.
He was clearly the best player on the field.
Well, yeah, he was outstanding. He transferred in from Mississippi, and they knew what they had there. They didn't necessarily need him because they had Travion Henderson, but they felt like they needed depth and they needed a 1-2 punch at running back, and they used them all year. Most of the games they had, one would get 49 yards, the other would get, 52. Like it was very evenly split, the work. They kept them healthy. One of them get banged up. It didn't hurt them at all. They were very smart in doing that. As opposed to when Jeremiah Love was hurt for Notre Dame, they didn't really have a lot to turn to. I know they have Blue, but it just felt like they didn't have the same kind of ability to carry it without Jeremiah Love. So the depth was clear on the Ohio State side.
And then I think Will Howard had an incredibly efficient game. I mean, he was
awesome.
distributing the ball all over the place. He didn't throw it much, only 21 times, but when he did, he was distributing it to all of his guys. Everyone got a touch. Of course, Jeremiah Smith, they wanted to get him started early, and they did in the first quarter. And then in the second quarter, he scored the first touchdown for them. So that was, it was a solid game for the Ohio State offense, I thought. I agree with you that they could have opened it up even more and tried to score more points, but decided to be a little more conservative.
Yeah.
Agree with you there.
They said our lead is big enough now. We can go conservative, and then if they start a comeback, we can always turn it back on, which is exactly what happened. They went long to Jeremiah Smith when they went into man coverage and burned them and took them all the way down. So they could clearly have done that anytime they wanted.
And then you notice that Notre Dame had some problems in the red zone, like everybody has against Ohio State this year. They have a really good red zone defense. But
they did score in the red zone, which was nice.
They did. But, that was kind of a bend, don't break situation in the red zone for the Ohio State Buckeyes. My question to you is, why and how do the Notre Dame Fighting Irish get themselves in the position where they're only effective on their first drive running the ball, and then after that essentially abandon it? Is it because they got so far behind, or is it that they just didn't follow their game plan?
No, I think Ohio State took it away from them, and they tried to throw, and just it wasn't working out very well. But, I mean, Jeremiah Love had 4 carries.
Right.
Clearly,
he's been banged up. He's been banged up.
So they didn't feel great about that. Leonard was their main rusher, and he had a real good game. He played tough. If you were to ask the Ohio State defenders, they'd say, "Man, harassing that guy was tough. He was good."
Mm-hmm.
So Riley Leonard came through. He made it a very challenging offense to play against. So
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
No question. Any other takeaways on this game? I thought it was a really solid game. I enjoyed it. I think everybody was geeked up. They had the second highest ever viewership for a college championship game, which I think says a lot about the night that they picked was a Monday night with no NFL competition. The fact that they had built up to this all season with the college football playoff, and the fact that you have two premier programs that have huge followings, right? So they had the second highest numbers ever, which was pretty cool to see.
I was proud of Notre Dame for how much fight they put up after going down 31-7. I will say that my friend was over last night, and he said, "I think I'm going to go home at halftime. I think this is kind of over." And I said, "Well, if I'm Notre Dame, I'm trying to get a turnover, and I'm going to try and get the ball to Great House." And both those things happened within a few minutes, and he stayed a little longer because it got more interesting. But I think that it was obvious that they were crowding the box and making Leonard beat them in the air. And even though he didn't throw that much, he threw more than Howard did.
And he threw more than he has all season except for one game.
Yeah,
So Leonard
he
actually
had
threw
to.
a lot more.
He had to. They were stacking the box and making the and spying the quarterback. So the only thing left that you had a shot at was throwing the ball.
I'm not sure
And
Leonard
Ohio
played better,
Ohio State DBs were fouling the heck out of Notre Dame wide receivers. It was wild.
Yeah, they were.
That was
I'm not
definitely a
sure,
strategy. Was play
I'm
them as
not
rough
sure
as you
Leonard.
can. Let's see
I'm
where
not
the
sure.
refs are in terms of calling the pass interferences.
I'm not sure Leonard could have played better than that. I mean, he really was solid.
Yeah,
They're just not as good a roster. He didn't have the weapons. He doesn't
right.
have the team behind him to win this game, I don't think. And that's why we both picked Ohio State.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Bucks, by the way, to all the fans out there. They have a huge fan base. Congratulations to them for this title. Their first title since 2014. So it's been 11 years. And, Ryan Day gets his first. So that gets that off his back. And, I have to say that Ohio State's in a really good spot as a program right now.
It is. Notre Dame did a nice job in terms of their play calling overall was pretty good. They knew they had to switch to throwing. They also defensively, they like to stay in man all the time. They did go back and forth between man and zone. So they were trying to be flexible. And I'm hearing a lot of talk about Al Golden is a major contender for the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator position. And they've had to wait until this championship game was over. But there were a lot of stats that were interesting, like special teams. Notre Dame went for it on a fake punt. I think that was a mistake, actually, not just because it didn't work, but it didn't make sense in that field position. It was almost an act of desperation that was sort of jumping the shark. I didn't think they needed to be that desperate yet, but
and then the
there were
Notre
a lot of
Dame
interesting stats.
Notre Dame kicker Jeter finally missed one. He boinked it off the goalpost.
Yeah, so kicking wise, Jeter was 0 for 1, and he was 1 for 1 in extra points, whereas Jaden Fielding was 2 for 2 field goals and 4 for 4 extra points. So the kicking was perfect for Ohio State, and Notre Dame had a little bit of mishaps on special teams. They were just trying to make things happen a lot,
Right.
so they were working hard. But third down was pretty impressive. Ohio State was 9 for 12.
Right.
For a while there, they were something like 7-0, 7 for 7 on third down. They just kept getting first downs every time they tried. And Notre Dame's was 5 for 12, which is pretty decent. Fourth down, Ohio State never went for it on fourth down. Notre Dame went for it got 3 out of 4 times. So they had a desperation to them that resulted in a nice little comeback, but they couldn't quite get it done.
I was really proud of how they fought too.
Yeah.
What's interesting is Ohio State was number 8 seed in this tournament, and Notre Dame was number 7 seed. neither one would have made this tournament in previous years in the old format. So
Right.
the 12-team playoff, these two teams are the biggest fans of the 12-team playoff because they not only made it, but they ended up making it all the way to the final. So
I think you're going to see a lot of this too. It wasn't so much that they went to Ohio State for money, but Judkins came in from Mississippi and Howard from Kansas State. I think that they came in to join a bunch of seniors who decided to stay. They really wanted a ring. They said that the loss to Michigan last year was so devastating that they sat around in the locker room and they just said, we need to roll this back and see what we can do with this team because it's a special group and we got to try to figure this out. So I think that's why they got those transfers. I think everyone wanted a shot, and I think you're going to see the really good teams have no trouble getting guys to come to try and get a ring.
And then you add to that group, a special freshman like Jeremiah Smith, and some of the talent they bring in.
Right.
It was a special team, and Notre Dame's was a special team too. I mean, they have not been on the stage in a long time either. So both of these teams really, it's been a long time since they were in the final. So
they put together a really solid group of offensive line and defensive players who were ball hawking and always ripping the ball out, punching it out. They were tough. They were fast. They were athletic. They were tough. And I think they just got a little overwhelmed with all the 5 stars. It was just a little too much for them.
Right. Big Ten.
But I think they're going to – I heard there's 1 5-star on all of Notre Dame. I actually don't know if that's true, but I heard that yesterday. And Ohio State has them all over the place. So I'll bet you there's a lot more parity to that next year. Notre Dame's going to get pretty good recruits.
Well, Big Ten has won 2 straight now. Big Ten's won 2 straight, and they've basically put the world on notice that they're here, and the other conferences are going to have to deal with them. So we'll see what happens going into next year.
Congrats. The biggest takeaway for me in this whole thing was rushing yardage 214 to Ohio State and 53 for Notre Dame.
I never would have guessed that before the game. And
Notre Dame had to become one-dimensional, and that was sort of the Ohio State decided we're going to bend but don't break, and we're going to stop them whenever we decide we need to, other than that first drive. But they did get some other points and stuff, so they played nicely. But Notre Dame was unstoppable on that first drive.
That's right. Well, on to next year. It's going to be really exciting to see what happens. Heading into the NFL, we had the Chiefs beat the Texans 23-14. This was in Kansas City. What's interesting, if you see there on the right, there's a little graphic that shows the Texans had more yards, more first downs, more plays, more time of possession, even in drives. Both had 0 turnovers, and yet the Chiefs won the game 23-14. So what does that tell you?
Well, the Chiefs' defense played amazing, and Travis Kelce had a huge game. So, to me, those 2 things together were enough.
Those 2 things, and then I think Kansas City plays better than anybody else in situational football.
True.
Which has to do with Andy Reid and his staff. That's just what I feel.
Yeah. And Butker was 3 for 3 field goals and 2 for 2 extra points. And Fairburn was 2 for 4. He missed 2 field goals. So if you think about it, that was a lot of points. Oh, and an extra point. So he missed 2 field goals and an extra point. That's 7 points that should have happened. So tack 7 on to,
He had literally a nightmare kicking day.
He had a nightmare kicking day. Yeah. So, you have if you take away you add those points on, you have a really, really tight game. And that's really what the reality was, I think. But
you look at the stats here. We got CJ Stroud had a pretty nice day, 19 for 28, 245, no interceptions, no touchdowns. QBR of 65. It's kind of okay. He wasn't great, wasn't bad either. Didn't
42
like
yards rushing. He had 42 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Kept some drives alive.
Mixon led with 88 yards rushing and a touchdown. As you said, Stroud with 42 yards rushing. Pierce had a disappointing day and had a couple really big days. And today, for some reason, he was just really non-existent in this game plan. On the receiving side, Nico Collins, their best receiver, 5 for 81. Schultz had a nice day at tight end, and a couple of other guys came up big for them. So they had a pretty nice day on the offensive side of the ball. They just could not score points, largely because they kept missing field goals. So that was kind of their day in summary. And there were some big stops by the Kansas City defense. There were a couple
The Chiefs
times
had 8 sacks. Eight
Right.
sacks and 9 tackles for loss. So even when they would do something good, the Chiefs would negate it with a sack. So that Chiefs defense was a huge reason why they won.
No question. Mahomes didn't do very much and hasn't been asked to do very much this year with 177 and a touchdown. No interceptions. That's the key stat. We talked about all 4 teams in the Final Four have no turnovers in the playoffs. Kareem Hunt had an okay day, had a touchdown. Pacheco's getting back into the mix a little bit, coming off injury. Kelsey, of course, had the biggest day of all with 7 for 117 and a touchdown. He had a couple huge connections with Mahomes in this game that really kind of turned the tide. One of them was a 49-yarder, which was really sweet down the middle.
Yeah.
Worthy continues to impress as a rookie. So what other impressions did you have of this game?
It's kind of what we've seen all year long, where Spagnuolo's team just defeats your offense. And then they have Mahomes and Kelsey. So
we talked about after the game. Spagnuolo was the MVP.
Yeah. Yeah,
if you could have a coach be the MVP, he would be the MVP.
8 sacks is a tremendous amount of pressure.
Right. Yeah, and I think the Texans are going to have to go back to the drawing board a little bit. You know, they did regress a little this year, and their line is not.
I'm not sure if they did. I think they put a little more emphasis on their defense. I think their defense played pretty well.
Their line is not where it needs to be on the offensive side.
I agree. I think their offensive line needs to be addressed a little bit. And, I mean, let's face it. They have 3 good wide receivers. They lost 1 and 2. I'm not sure any team would really be anything but a shell of itself if they lost, their top 2 receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can make the playoffs without your top 2 weapons.
It is remarkable, though, if you look at all these games, that the losing teams in all 4 games outgame the other team. I mean, that's incredible. all being negated by turnovers. So
yeah, well, Houston dominated in some ways, but the important ways, Kansas City just knows what's important and can handle it.
If they had made the 2 field goals, it would have been a 23-20 game.
Correct, and then you never know if you're that close. If you're within a field goal, it's a lot different than trying to survive. Yeah.
Well, Kansas City advances. They have another home game to get to the Super Bowl. This is 3 straight years they've been in the AFC Championship game, and this is 5 out of 6 years they've been in the AFC Championship game. So are you comfortable starting to think that this is a dynasty at this point when they're going to the AFC Championship game every year?
It's definitely a dynasty.
Yeah. I think that's pretty clear that that's the case. Anybody who doubts that, just look at the results. So solid game. Texans are a year away, is what I would say. They still have some real needs.
It's the 4th time back-to-back Super Bowl champs have advanced to the conference title game, and Andy Reid was the 4th coach to 300 wins. So that's pretty good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame. Andy Reid.
The Texans had 8 penalties for 82 yards. There was a lot of after game belly aching about the reffing. Mm-hmm. And I can understand why. I don't join in that myself, but some of the ticky-tack hits on Mahomes that were getting 15-yard penalties were a little bit.
There's definitely a narrative. It's been there for about 3 years now. It's really strong this year because there's a lot of Kansas City haters. They're out there, and they keep throwing memes out on the internet about how, the refs are dressing in Kansas City gear and stuff like that. And it's definitely out there. I mean, you can't ignore it. I know even the NFL has put a statement out about it, saying that there's no favoritism, there's no whatever.
Well, in every game, Kansas City gets half the penalty yardage the other team does.
But I mean, this same narrative was
started
there for
playing.
the Patriots when the Patriots are winning all those Super
Yeah,
Bowls. There was the same narrative about how
they've
they were,
taken over a
they were
lot of the
cheating,
same narratives.
they were cheating, and they were getting ref calls, and they were getting this and getting that, and
Yeah,
it's people who can't deal with the fact that teams like this are so successful every single year.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So looking at the next game, of course, for our Commanders, this was just so exciting. We were watching this game, we just couldn't believe our eyes as the Commanders kept rolling up points and yards on the Lions and vice versa. There was 1,000 yards of offense in this game, 500 on both sides. The Lions actually outgained the Commanders by a little bit, but not much. Daniels was 22 for 31 for 299 and 2 touchdowns with a QBR of 91. Robinson had a really nice game with 2 touchdowns and 77
Yeah,
yards. Daniels had 51 yards himself rushing, and then Eckler had some good yards both on the ground and as a receiver. Eckler's
yeah, he contributed a lot. Eckler did.
become a really nice kind of scat back for them.
Hmm.
Brown for Washington continues to emerge, 6 for 98. And then Terry McLaurin had one of the nicest touchdowns of the year, including a stiff arm down the sideline, which you and I were watching that. We were just shouting as he scored. Ertz had a nice touchdown as well. Really, really nice day for Washington's offense. 45 points against the Lions away at their place. Looking at Goff, 23 for 40, which is pretty horrific in terms of efficiency. He did have over 300 yards, but he had 1 touchdown and 3 picks and a fumble lost. And a QBR of 41, which is just abysmal in the playoffs. You just can't win like that. You can't win with that many turnovers either. Jahmyr Gibbs had a nice day, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jameson Williams had a touchdown. St. Brown, of course, was completely dominant like he always is. Laporta had a beautiful touchdown as well. Thoughts about this game?
So both offenses kind of rolled, but the Washington defense came up big with turnovers. They got a pick 6, which was sweet. They had 4 interceptions and a fumble recovery, and they had 2 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. So Washington defense, I think, was the difference. That pick 6 was huge. So in addition to that, I was shocked when I saw it, but I realized that it was true. The Lions had 0 sacks.
Mm-hmm. It is true.
So if you ever were wondering what it was like for them to have all those backups in there and not have Hutchison and those guys, you could see the output was missing. The dominance on defense was not there.
You think about if you're Cliff Kingsbury and you're the offensive coordinator and you tell him before the game, you're going to have 0 sacks, you're going to have 500 yards of offense, you're going to have no turnovers. He'd say, I take it.
Heck yeah.
I mean, that's
Now,
incredible.
Jahmyr Gibbs did have an amazing game. St. Brown looked amazing. Laporta had some really pivotal plays. But in the end, it was bend but don't break, and Washington took the ball away a bunch of times and gave their offense more opportunities. In the red zone, Tom, Washington was 4 for 4, and Detroit was 3 for 6. Those are huge because each one of those is a touchdown. And so
and what was interesting is the Detroit Lions have gotten the reputation of being going for 4th down team, and so have Washington. They both have been. But in this game, Washington outdid that to the Lions. They almost outlions the Lions with the 4th down success. And this was a really interesting game. In a lot of ways, they did a lot of what the Lions usually do to people.
Yeah. And it was wild. In the second quarter, 42 points was the highest scores ever in a quarter in an NFL playoff game. 42 points in the second quarter.
It was a lot of fun to watch, for sure. What's your thought about the Lions? I mean, are they on their way up? Are they on their way down? They're probably going to lose both their coordinators.
I'm hearing they're going to regress because of the loss of coordinators, and they're likening it to when Steichen left the Eagles, and you saw them take a big step back last year. I don't agree. I don't see that kind of step back coming for them. I think the culture is built now, and I think Dan Campbell gets your backups to play hard. So it doesn't matter who leaves your team. They're
But
all playing for Dan Campbell. So I think
but
they're going to be really good again next year.
but in the end, you can win a lot of games and be competitive with a decent quarterback like a Kirk Cousins or like a Sam Darnold. I'm starting to put Jared Goff in that category. I'm not sure he can get it done when it's crunch time
I
and
don't
it's in the
agree.
playoffs. You
I
think
don't
he can
agree.
get
I
it
think
done?
he's plenty good enough. I just think that his team defensively was banged up. They got 0 sacks. You're going to get 0 sacks and very little pressure on Jayden Daniels. He's going to pick you apart. If they had Hutchinson and their starters in there,
But
they
that
would have
had
had
nothing
a
to
lot
do with
different result.
why Goff continues to have these bad games at the worst time.
No, they've proven
He's
though
had a
that
couple of them.
quarterbacks whose defenses are letting them down tend to force things and end up turning the ball over a lot more. Those two things are situationally related.
So you still have confidence he can get it done?
Yeah, as long as that whole nucleus stays together, the two-headed monster at running the ball, the incredible pancaking offensive line, Laporta running wild, St. Brown running wild in the secondary. Yeah, I think Goff has a nice set
So
of
you think
weapons
this is
around him
just
and the best offensive line in football, I think, probably better than the Eagles.
so you think this is just a situation they were so banged up that when they finally got
Yeah.
to this round, the divisional round, they couldn't cover up
Their
that
defense could not handle it.
Yeah.
Give them back half their players, they win this game.
So then what do you think it says about Washington? Do you think they're a year or two ahead of schedule where everyone thought they were going to be? I
They
mean,
could be 3 years
because of
ahead
this
of schedule.
special kid?
They got far into this playoffs with an okay defense that's playing well and decent offensive weapons, but not great. You could do better than Robinson just by himself. You could do better than just McLaurin on one side. Obviously, De'Ami Brown has been a nice find all of a sudden. Zach Ertz is a great mentor veteran, but I'm not sure you need a young guy, and Sanad is coming up. We'll see. I think that they have an opportunity to be better than this with
There's no
Jaden.
question they're going to get better because they're an incomplete roster. They've had 1 year to build it.
Yeah.
And they're in the NFC Championship game. So it's really astounding what's happening
Right.
with Washington.
I found it so fascinating listening to why Jayden Daniels is so successful, and I was blown away at why. And he's using virtual reality.
Really?
Yes, he started using it at LSU, and it's 1.75 times as fast. So you have to calculate everything where safeties are. They were watching him go live. They were showing how he was seeing safeties creep up into spaces that safeties don't stand unless they're blitzing, because they're not standing over anyone else. And there were all these things where he would change the thing at this line of scrimmage, run away from the blitzing safety, and this and that. And they said he's processing it so quickly that when he gets on the field, it looks slow.
Yeah.
And so he actually had it written into his contract. They came out with this big story recently about how at LSU they started using it. It was this failing virtual reality sports company who was trying to work with soccer players, and it was not working, and they were losing money, and I think they were about to go under. And somehow they got wind of it, and they asked Jaden Daniels if he wanted to try it, and he said, absolutely. I like to just check it out. And so at the beginning of every one of his practices, he spends time in the VR, and he gets his
Wow.
brain clicking.
And
And then he goes out
and
there
still
and he shreds defenses.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
that's the future. You're
So he's
looking at the
training
future.
he's training his brain.
He's training his brain. And even when he was injured, he was still learning and advancing because his brain was able to focus in even more on reading defenses and seeing tendencies and looking for holes and watching people breaking and getting off the line. And he could see so much happening because the VR makes him look at it at 1.75 the speed.
So do you think other teams are going to adopt that now that they find
Oh,
out?
absolutely.
You got to think
They're all making calls, to LSU, tell us about this program. And he actually had it signed into his contract with Washington. He did not want to go to a team that wouldn't let him use VR in this way, in this program. So they said, sure, yeah, we'll let you use it, whatever. And they're blown away at how it's impacting his brain, because his body is not taking the hits that you'd think a young quarterback was going to take.
That's true. He runs away from it. He runs out of bounds after getting 10 yards.
And he sees where the pressure is coming from. So he's not going to tangle with that blitzing safety that's going to be a shock to most rookie quarterbacks. He's going to see the guy and run this way away from him.
Have you ever seen a 23-year-old kid this poised before? I mean, realistically.
Well, I think we know why now. Not only is he a special kid physically, but he's special between the ears. And
the VR is one thing, but you also
the VR is a tool that is allowing him to unlock this special gift that he has.
But you still have to have the right demeanor. The VR is fine, but you have to have the right demeanor.
I'm saying it's all come together for him in this space where physically he's at his peak. He's able to run around with real speed, and he's allowing his brain to look at the game actually slower than what he's seeing in the VR. So it's all of it together. The team believes in him. They're blocking like crazy for him. They're doing everything. Everyone's doing their job better than they've ever done it. And even Zach Ertz has had a revival year. I mean, because he's so energized by this young kid who is special in so many ways. But one of them is between the ears, where he's able to use this technique that allows him to slow the game down. And if you talk to any quarterback, Mahomes said it was year 3, it's slowed down for him.
Right.
A lot of quarterbacks say year 2, late year 2, it slows down. He's from day 1, he's seen it at a slower pace. That's going to be the future.
Right. Whereas some of the other rookies who don't do VR, clearly it's not slowing down for them.
Yeah.
they're having problems.
Who could use that is Sam Darnold, because when it speeds up, he starts doing pitter-pat with his feet and he gets nervous and he walks right into a sack.
That's right. He
as
has so many sacks that he shouldn't have. It's true. So
he needs VR training so that he can.
Bottom line, you think Detroit could regress because they may lose their 2 coordinators, but you think Jared Goff can still get it done. So that's the bottom line.
I don't think they're going to regress. A lot of important pundits do. So we'll see.
They say culture guys can only go so far, and you've had a couple of years now of Dan with his system, but at some point it'll probably regress.
Why do we think the roster is going to go backwards in terms of talent? I
don't.
The
roster, just the whole system.
No. But I think if you have the roster and the culture guy together, I don't see why you go backwards. I don't think they're winning exclusively because of their offense coordinator.
So I agree with you there. So then on the flip side, do you think the Commanders, this is a fluke year, or do you think they're on the rise and everyone's going to have to deal with Jayden Daniels for 10 years?
I think teams who have to play them are going to realize the only way to beat him is to put him under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I think 0 sacks is no way. You can't beat him.
If they had Hutchinson, I bet you they wouldn't have had 0 sacks.
Right. That's right. Because he would have been collapsing pockets, and Daniels would have been running for his life a lot more.
If you watch him play, he does the opposite of what Darnold and Goff do. He avoids sacks by just stepping out right at the right time. He's got incredible instincts.
He feels them coming because of his instincts and also because he sees the game at a slower pace than others. I
personally think that everyone in the NFC is going to have to deal with the Commanders for the next 10 years. That's what I personally think. I think they're on the rise.
Well, I agree, because they're going to get a good enough draft put together, I think, with this nice crew they have in the front office.
They'll get a linebacker, they'll get a corner, they'll get, they'll keep batting. So, yeah.
Yeah, they need defensive pieces, although this defense is really playing well in the playoffs.
True. All right, looking at the next game, this was a wild game in the snow. I personally believe the LA Rams would have won this game quite comfortably if it was in the Dome in Los Angeles. But because it was in Philadelphia in the snow and because the cold was just really hard to deal in, the Eagles kind of took control of this game until right in the last part of the game when the LA Rams almost came back. They were down 13 points with 4 minutes left, scored a touchdown, and then had the ball again and were driving and got down inside almost to the red zone and had a chance to win this game. But What were your thoughts about this game initially, 28-22? We were watching this game actually at your kid's birthday party.
Well, it's the first of the two weather games that I think were pretty dramatically affected by the snow. And I've become a get off my lawn old guy. Not old school, but I don't like bad weather games. I think it's unfortunate that it hurts the quality of the product, and you just pretty much end up just grinding it out on the ground. And anytime you do throw, you're probably going to be having a lot of bad results. So um, it was exciting to watch Saquon bust those two really long runs that I think ended up being kind of the difference in the game.
No doubt.
But there were some defensive stars on the field that, I mean, I think that we're looking at the two best defensive players that are going to take over for Aaron Donald and who's the guy for the Chargers? He was a wrecking ball when he was with Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He played at University of Buffalo. For some reason, I can't remember his name. Anyway, those two defensive players for the last 10 to 12 years have been incredible. And I think you're seeing a passing of the torch.
Mm-hmm.
And
There
I
was a
think
lot of fun defense to watch in this game. You're talking about Verse and you're talking about Jalen Carter. I mean, the
yeah, I
two.
was just about to say that Jalen Carter and Verse are the two new guys that arrived that you now are seeing them separate as the next thing on defense.
Mm-hmm. It was incredible. The Eagles defense made some huge plays in the fourth quarter to stop the Rams from tying this game up or even winning it.
Yeah.
So they really stepped up. And then Saquon Barkley, I mean, he just continues to put this team on his back because Jalen Hurts, as we've talked about, is just playing subpar football. And the team is game planning around him. They're winning in spite of him, essentially.
He busted 78 and 62-yard touchdown runs.
He can't
It was
even
like
hold,
watching out Ashton Genty.
I mean, Hurts can't even hold Stafford's jockstrap right now. If they played this game in the dome, I think it would have been a pretty easy win for the Rams. So,
well, they're just saying to Hurts, don't throw it very much. You're going to have to run it yourself and hand it to Saquon and dump it off to Goddard and safe stuff, you know?
Barkley was the best player on the field. Second best player on the field was probably Verse. Third best was Jalen Carter. And then fourth best was Matthew Stafford.
That's right. I would agree with all of those things.
So looking at the stats, Stafford had 324 for 2 touchdowns. There were 5 sacks on him, which really hurt him. Carter and his crew were really, really punishing in this game, especially in the snow. Kyron Williams had a pretty nice day, 19 for 106. Puka had his normal really good day. Demarcus Robinson had some really big first down catches across the middle. Cooper Kupp had a pretty nice day, and Higbee had a really nice touchdown. So the Rams had a decent day offensively, not as good as their standard the last couple of weeks, but definitely pretty good day, especially in the snow. Hurts had a very pedestrian day, 15 for 20. They don't ask him to do much these days. 128. Essentially, please don't turn the ball over. That's all we're asking you to do. He's basically a $55 million a year game manager at this point.
Yes, that's right.
Saquon Barkley had just the game of his life. 205 for 2 touchdowns in the playoffs. Hurts did have 70 yards rushing and a really nice touchdown down the right side. It was a really nice run. I don't know where the defense was on that one.
He's basically a running back.
Exactly.
They hand the ball off sometimes.
And then A.J. Brown continues to just kind of fade into the distance, didn't do very much. Goddard had a pretty nice day. Devontae Smith had a couple nice catches. But
none of the receivers did very much. I mean, Goddard's the leader with 56 yards. That's kind of pitiful. So they had to run the ball in that snow and play defense. I mean, you know, the both teams got a lot of sacks on the other. I mean, 5 sacks for the Eagles defense, 7 sacks for the Rams defense. So that's a lot of mayhem.
Do you think the Eagles can score enough points to keep up with the Commanders in the next round?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be snowy probably, so they're going to run the ball a lot. It's going to be low scoring.
And do you think the Commanders can stop Barkley? I mean, those are the two questions going into that game.
No,
can they stop Barkley?
I don't.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see the Commanders, but I don't think they have a chance.
Is Jalen Hurts' knee going to be an issue? Because he hurt his knee in this game?
That's their opportunity, is to put, if they get a nice lead and force Hurts and or his replacement, whoever's playing quarterback,
It's
to
gonna be
have
Kenny
to throw
Pickett.
what's that? Pickett.
Kenny Pickett.
Whoever's in going to be throwing the ball because they're down and behind, then Washington can win. But if they're trying to play from behind, I think it's tough. Jalen Carter's going to make a nightmare day for Daniels.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I have a feeling that the way the Commanders' offense is clicking right now, even in the snow, they're going to score a lot of points. The question is, can Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, especially with Hurts' hurt knee, can they keep up? Can they score enough points to keep up with the Commanders?
If it's high scoring, it's probably advantage Commanders.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel the way I do that the Rams would have won this game in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I do. I do think so. I think this was a weather game. It determined that the winner. So I think that the Eagles were fortunate to be playing at home when it was snowing, and it forced everyone to be basically running nonstop, and took a lot of the play out of the quarterback's hands. I mean, look at Stafford. That's a bad game for him, even though he's very, very good. I'm a huge fan. 26 for 44.
Right.
Shouldn't be throwing the ball 44 times when it's a blizzard.
Yeah.
That's not great game planning. So Kyron Williams got 106 yards. He probably should have had almost twice that.
That's right. Well, if Jalen Carter doesn't make a couple plays in the fourth quarter, the Rams likely would have won this game by a point. So
yeah,
he really saved the game for them.
It was a good game. It was just sloppy. It was unnecessarily sloppy.
That's right.
And
so
Burst went off.
Last game on the board is the Ravens and Bills. This is the game all of us were waiting on the entire week. And it was two epic players. These guys are going to go 1-2 in the MVP race. We're not sure if it's going to be Jackson or Josh Allen that wins the MVP. We'll see. But either way, this was that epic game we were really excited about. The Bills jumped all over the Baltimore Ravens in the first half. And then the Ravens had a really great second half. And Lamar played well in the second half, even though he didn't play well in the first half. So he ends up with 18 for 25, 254, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. That was an absolute killer in the first half.
It was a killer.
He also had a fumble where he had a bad snap and he picked the ball back up and then he inexplicably dropped it again. And the Bills picked it up and ran it almost to the house and got tackled. But that was a huge play in the game as well. So again, the same theme we've been seeing, that the team that makes the mistakes loses the game and the team that doesn't wins the game. In this game, we had Derrick Henry 16 for 84 with a touchdown. The fact that he had 16 carries is just abominable. I just can't believe it.
It's about half of what he should have gotten.
You and I talked about going into this game and the playoffs in general that we don't trust the Baltimore coaching staff because they always do this.
Yep.
They always short their running game. And even last year without Henry, they had the number one rushing offense and went away from it in the playoffs. So I don't know. I'm done with the Ravens. I'm done with the Ravens talk about how they're going to win the Super Bowl every year. They always find a way to blow it in the playoffs, and it's because I think game planning. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think the two best teams in football were the Ravens and the Lions, in my opinion. And the Lions couldn't do much about the fact that they got hurt. So their exit is sort of understandable. The Ravens' loss is predictable because we did predict it and we saw what happened last year. And for some reason, when the game's on the line, they want Lamar to win the game for them, and he's really not the ideal candidate. I mean, the MVP this year should be either Saquon Barkley or Henry, and when one of those two guys is not the star of the game, their team is likely to lose.
Right.
And I don't understand what it would take for the Ravens coaching staff to see that. But
we called this. Well, actually, I called this because you picked the Ravens to win this game. I picked the Bills to win this game, and it was purely not because they were the better team, but it was because of this situation where the Ravens go away from their strengths in the playoffs. And I'll never understand it.
But remember, at the beginning of the playoffs, I said the Ravens are probably going to lose somewhere because I don't trust their coaches.
Right. That's
So,
right.
I mean, I did see this coming. I don't know. I wasn't sure if it would happen then. Really, it was in their hands to win this, and they ran Derrick Henry 16 times total. So
then looking at their receiving, Likely and Bateman both had big days with 4 catches
mhm.
each and a touchdown. Mark
Yep,
Andrews had a nice catch day. He also ran the ball twice for 2 first downs, but he had the
he had a
absolute
nightmare game.
nightmare game of his life. And why?
Yeah,
Because one of those catches he made over the middle, the Buffalo linebacker punched it out, and it was a huge fumble in the game.
yeah.
So the Baltimore Ravens end up -3 in the turnover battle, which was the game. So
Hmm.
that was one. And then two, he could actually tie the game at the end after Baltimore drives 88 yards for a
He's
tying
wide open.
touchdown. And they needed 2 points to tie it. He was wide open at the goal line and just fumbles it out of bounds and couldn't
He dropped
haul
it.
it in.
Yeah, and that would have
And
tied the game. And they scored on 5 of their last 6 possessions. They would have absolutely, I'm convinced, won in overtime. So
possibly,
that was the game. That was
yeah.
a tragic game. In fact, it's so bad that they've had to shut off their social media, him and his girlfriend, because they're getting death threats and they're getting um, online bullied
So how do
and
you explain a
criticized.
game? How do you explain a game
They're
like
getting
this?
criticized so heavily they've had to shut off their social media.
How do you explain a game like this where Mark Andrews is one of the top 4 tight ends in football, and yet he has this nightmarish game? By the way, he only had 2 turnovers the entire season. He doesn't turn the ball over
I
at
know.
all. And how do you explain it?
Well, props to the Bill for causing that fumble. It wasn't just
He
that he
punched
was
it. Yeah.
running and he fumbled it. It was a punch and it was a well-placed defensive strike. So that you tip your hat to that and you move on. Um, but I I'm still dumbfounded that he did not catch that wide open 2-point conversion
Yeah.
right in his hands. He's backing into the
Incredible.
end zone. There's nobody around him. It wasn't even like there was pressure on him, and he dropped it. And
And
therefore,
and you
Baltimore
and
didn't
I
get the 2-point, and they lost by 2. That was
and you
overtime right there.
and you and I have a massive disagreement over the bad weather games. I know you hate them and you want every game to be in a dome. And I'm
Yep.
old school and I love them. And it's for this reason. I love the elements. I love the variability. I love, like, when you watch golf and you're watching a guy trying to hit a 4-iron into the wind. I love the variability of it.
I'm okay with
And
a regular November game or something that doesn't mean the whole world. Like when it's a playoff game, I want to see high flying. I want to see greatest show on turf. Offenses and defenses flying around. I want to see
yep,
throwing the ball. I want to see running the ball. I want to see
yep.
balanced
And
offenses.
so
You
you're
can't be balanced when it's a blizzard out. You're going to be running the ball nonstop. It's one dimensional, and you'll see an all-pro safety slip, and the running back will scamper for a touchdown. That shouldn't have happened. Um,
and so you're the opposite of old school. I'm old school and you are new school, meaning you want
It's not
it
that
to be
I'm the
perfect.
opposite of new school. It's not that I'm the opposite of old school. I think I'm old school in most ways. I love a good snow game. I just can't stand it when there's so much riding on the line. I want just the best football. You
Yeah,
can't control injuries, so you can't control having the best players in the world out there. You're
right,
hoping that as
right.
many as possible can make it through the gauntlet to play in the playoff game. But the one thing you can control is the weather,
Well,
and they're choosing not to, and I think that's a huge mistake.
Well, everybody who's listening tonight, all you listeners, drop us a comment. Tell us how you like it. Do you think that we should have perfect weather in the playoffs, or do you like the old school snow and rainy and windy games that we had in the old days and we still have today in places like Buffalo? Just tell us what you guys think. Which way do you like it? So looking at the
You
Buffalo,
want to see greatest show on turf, or do you want to see four yards and a pile of snow?
exactly. You know that I like the pile of snow. All right, so Buffalo passing, Josh Allen wasn't asked to do much. 16 for 22, 127, was very efficient, no
It's been
turnovers.
his whole year.
Cook had a nice day. Ty Johnson, Davis had nice contributions. Davis had a touchdown in the first quarter. Shakir continues to emerge as one of the best rookies, who was an undrafted free agent. Cook had some nice catches. Overall, nobody really emerged very much on the passing side because they just didn't pass the ball much and didn't have to. So, what are your thoughts about the day Buffalo had?
Pretty typical way they've played a lot of the year. They're very balanced. They've asked Allen to move the ball down the field and manage the team. Occasionally run like crazy, and his running is probably more important than his throwing. And he had 20 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. He's their goal line option. He almost made an enormous mistake when he ran into the line and they stood him up. It looked like a rugby ruck where he turned around and it looked like he was going to pitch it. And that would have been a blunder because there was a lot of traffic. It would have had to go through a lot of people's hands swatting at it. And in those conditions, it just was a huge mistake. So he talked himself out of pitching it, but you
I'll
almost saw
also
him make
say
a pretty
he's
dramatic
gotten.
error.
I'll also say he's gotten very good at avoiding sacks as well. He's become much more experienced over the years.
Yeah,
They had
yeah, I
one
agree.
sack for 1 yard on him.
Yep,
And his offensive line, I've gained so much respect for the Buffalo offensive line
I agree with that. They've
the
been
last 4 years.
bulldozing.
And they just are. They're one that hasn't gotten a lot of recognition until recently. Let's put it that way.
I was
Um,
blown away at the last game, and this game was fantastic as well.
so they're one of the major reasons they're going on the offensive line, along with James Cook.
I agree.
Yeah.
And look, I don't want to take anything away from Allen. What I'm saying is he's more in the context of the offense than he used to be the offense. Now he is more like an Elway. Elway went to Super Bowls and lost because he tried to win them by himself. And as soon as Elway got Terrell Davis and Davis became the featured back and the featured part of the offense, Elway got 2 Super Bowls back to back. That's not an accident. I think they really have patterned this after Elway. We're going to ask Allen to throw less. His throws are going to be more important because the defense is going to be expecting it less.
And I
We're
was
going to have to
watching
soften up
them.
defense.
I don't know what it is, but I watch all these teams like Buffalo running the exact game plan that the Ravens should be running. And I'm
Yep.
just sitting there thinking to myself, these guys have 3 backs that are running the way they are. And I'm
Yep.
looking over at Derrick Henry, who's the best back in football, and he's being used 16 times.
Totally. Yeah.
I just don't get it. I don't
I know.
understand it.
It's a coaching thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
I love how they've used Allen this year.
Yeah.
Would
Me
I
too.
make him the league MVP? Absolutely not. Not for the diminished role he's had in the offense,
I
but
think he's going to win it.
it's a more important role because it
Mm.
has to do with managing all these pieces. He's better at it.
Mhm.
He's being asked to do less,
By the way, they
but
said he's a better teammate now too, which is
I believe that. He
that's
looks
important.
better out
That's
there. He
important.
looks like, they're stacking the box. It's time to throw. They're dropping back in coverage. I'm going to be handing this to Cook, or I'm taking it myself. It's a much smarter, more balanced approach, and it's because he doesn't have any superstars on offense. He's going to distribute it nicely and just kind of manage the game.
Yeah,
And he's
he
better
throws
at
it to
managing
Dalton
the game.
Kincaid, and then he throws it to Curtis
Yeah,
Samuel, and then he throws
Knox,
it to Shakir,
Samuel,
and then, yeah,
Coleman, Shakir.
yep.
Just a little dump off here, a little there. Run Cook. He runs it himself. Um, they're a balanced offense. They're much better with him being less of a feature.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
right.
then defensively, they've come up pretty huge, although I don't think either defense really played that well in this game. I mean, the Ravens had 1 sack and 3 tackles for loss in the snow. That's not great. And Buffalo did have some turnovers, but they had 2 sacks and 7 tackles for loss,
What?
1 pick, and 2 fumble recoveries.
Why do you think it took so long for Lamar to get going in this game? I mean, it essentially took him till midway through the third quarter when he started firing it up. He was really struggling at first.
I'm not sure about that one. They were running the ball a good amount in the first half. The ball was getting dropped. I don't know. He just he started clicking the second half, and they started to make it work, but they completely abandoned the run, which was sad, and really led to them losing.
They likely would have won in overtime, I agree. And if they had had one more drive in the fourth quarter, I think they definitely would have won because their offense was really clicking. So,
Yeah.
well, it was an interesting game. So going on to what we've got left, we got the Final Four. Pretty exciting. We've got the 3:00 game on Sunday is Washington at Philadelphia. Will likely be crappy cold weather, as we can expect. So Rob's going to love it. And then the 6:30 game is Buffalo at Kansas City, which will also be very cold and crappy weather, but both teams are used to it at this point. So that'll be the 6:30 game. So which of these games are you most interested or excited about?
Well, the Chiefs-Bills game, neither one of them is a high-flying offense. So let that be a snow grinder. It doesn't matter. But Washington is really reliant on Daniels being able to get the ball around everybody. So that might affect him quite a bit. But
Unless Jalen Hurts really is hurt, and then we'll find
unless
out.
he's hurt to a point where he's not effective. Because remember, one of the biggest things that he's doing this year is running the ball pretty effectively. So if you take that away, they're easier to stop.
All right, who do you like in the Bills game against Kansas City?
I like Kansas City. I like their coaches. I like their quarterback. And I love their defense. Chris Jones looks like this is week one. He looks fresh. He's eating in the backfield, man. He is all over the place. Their corners are flying around, knocking balls out. And, they've got just some really nice pieces on defense.
Their defense is really good.
Yeah,
It is really, really good.
Karlaftis and all these guys.
Bills' offense is better than the Chiefs' offense. But
yes, it is. It's more
yeah.
balanced.
And actually, Josh Allen's playing better than Mahomes right now and has been this year.
Yeah, but I would take Mahomes over Allen any day of the week.
But yeah, I was about to say that when it comes to deep in the playoffs experience,
yeah,
it's hard to bet against Mahomes.
Yeah, but I would take Allen over almost most anyone else.
I'm going to pick the Bills in this game. I know it's shocking. I thought I would never go against the Chiefs again, but I think the Bills are going to get it done. I don't know why. It's a gut thing. I think it's going to be a really tight, close game, maybe like 28-24, something like that. But I think Josh Allen's going to get it done this year. Just have a feeling about it. What about Washington Eagles?
Well, I'm going to call for the Chiefs to win. Because I just believe in the Mahomes, Kelsey defense and Andy Reid. That's what I think. And then Washington at Philadelphia, a lot depends on whether Hurts is able to be effective. Not just out there taking snaps, but I mean, can he hurt your defense running? So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Washington.
I agree.
I think the Eagles roster is a little better, but I think Jayden Daniels could be an equalizer.
I think Washington's going to shock the world. I think his elusiveness, his ability to squirt out of sacks, his ability to throw on the run, to pick up first downs with his legs. The weapons are all playing really well for Washington right now. They're relatively healthy compared to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts already wasn't playing well, and I think he's going to be limited with his knee. If you get a couple quarters with Kenny Pickett, I think he'll be totally ineffective. And I think they're going to find a way to stack the box and not let Saquon hurt them. I think they're going to force the Eagles to throw the ball. So we shall see. If Washington can get 2 or 3 turnovers, they definitely win this game. So I'm going to go out on a limb too.
The Eagles have the better roster and should win. It's at home. And I think the snow is going to affect Washington more negatively than Philadelphia. So it makes me nervous, but I think Washington's defense is surprisingly playing well, and Jayden Daniels is playing next level.
I think if Saquon has another 200-yard with 2 touchdowns game, the Eagles are going to win.
Oh, yeah.
They can't allow that. So
No.
if they can limit Saquon, they can win this game. So that's my pick.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the big question this week, we have our subscriber challenge. We do this every week. We want you to drop a comment down below. Who you think is going to win the Super Bowl out of these 4 teams? Who will win Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans? A couple interesting stats there, as you see on the right. This was the first conference championship round where all 4 teams have a combined in playoffs for 0 turnovers. So none of these 4 teams in any of the playoff games have any turnovers. Pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. And I really think all the stats, Rob, that you crunch for us every week, and I appreciate it so much, and so do the fans. I think this is the most important stat, is turnovers. The turnover battle often decides the game, especially in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's really helped all 4 of these teams get to this point in the season.
And to demonstrate that, if you look at the graphic down below that, all 4 losers in the games this past weekend all outgained the other one. So you had most yards, Texans, Lions, Rams, and Ravens, and all 4 lost. So why? Because they turned the ball over.
They were bend but don't break, and eventually take the ball away from the other team.
Right, exactly.
You know.
All right, Robbie, who's going to win the Super Bowl, man?
I think the winner of Philadelphia, Washington. So I think Washington's going to do it, but man, if the weather's bad enough, advantage Philly.
So you think the NFC is going to win it this year?
I felt like it was going to be either Philly or Detroit against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. So since the Ravens decided to stop running the ball and lose again, they're out. I just don't think Kansas City can go all the way, but I do think they're going to beat the Bills. So it is possible to go all the way. I don't think they're the best team, but I do think
they'd be absolutely shocked if Kansas City won 3 in a row. I wouldn't.
Not with the way this is playing out. No.
Yeah.
I think that they should be playing the Ravens.
Yeah.
And the Ravens should be there.
So you're saying you think a rookie quarterback is going to win the Super Bowl?
I don't know. I mean, I don't like Washington to win the Super Bowl. I actually like Philly to do it. But at the same time, Washington against Philly, I kind of feel like Washington wins that. So I don't know. I'm going to go out on a crazy limb and say Washington wins the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow. Huh.
I wouldn't have said that 3 weeks ago.
All right. We will play this back, guys. Please drop your comment down below and tell us who you think out of these 4 teams who's going to win it. We want to hear it from you guys next week.
I would feel a lot more confident if it wasn't snowing.
So I've got the Bills and the Commanders in the Super Bowl, and I've got Josh Allen getting his first ring. I think he's going to do it this year. I think it's likely going to be the only ring he wins in his career, and it's going to be this year. And I think he'll win the MVP as well. So that's my call on that. I hope Washington wins it, obviously, as a Washington fan. But I don't
really see how Washington can do this if it's going to be a terrible blizzard. But
the Super Bowl will be in the dome. It'll be controlled.
No, yeah.
So
that's advantage, Jayden.
Yeah. I mean, they certainly have a shot. If they get to the Super Bowl, they've got a shot. I don't know what it is. I just think the Bills are the team of destiny this year.
I'm a little underwhelmed by Washington's running game.
Mm-hmm.
So that scares me. But
So looking at something that came out today, this is the big breaking news from today, Tuesday. Jayden Daniels was voted 2024 Rookie of the Year and Offensive Rookie of the Year, which was to be expected. And the day before, on Monday, Texans C.J. Stroud said Jayden Daniels has had the best rookie year of all time. And he said it's not close.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts about this big news today?
Yeah, I mean, it's become clear that he's having that special kind of year, and he deserves all the accolades. He's doing things that no other rookie really has done.
And I think if you watched our draft special, this is not mega shocking to us. Like we talked a lot about, he was going to be really successful. I didn't think he'd be this successful, but this is not that big a shock.
Right.
At least if you watch our draft special. So
Mhm.
he deserves it. You know, I like to see a guy get rewarded for something he deserves.
Yep.
All right, let's look at this week's memes. Who America's rooting for in the conference championships games. Most of the country is for the Bills, with a little tiny little dot in the middle of the country for the Chiefs. And then most of the country is for the Commanders, with a little tiny dot for the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you think that's accurate?
Probably.
So the Super Bowl I'm calling for is what America wants, essentially. We'll see. Next one is commandeered. This was in the Detroit Free Press after Sunday's game. And it's showing Jared Goff with one of his mistakes in the game. I'm sure that was very painful for Detroit people to read the next day.
Yeah.
This was the funniest one. You sent me this one. This is a Detroit fan who was so confident his Lions were going to the Super Bowl this year and going to win it that he had a tattoo on his leg for this Super Bowl here. What are your thoughts about this? You think he's going to get removal? Or I guess he could just change the number if they win it one day.
Yeah, no, I saw one. I thought I sent it to you where he there's a line through the year and he puts the next year.
Oh, is that
So,
right? Okay.
yeah, so he's gonna just keep changing the year.
Man. This is one of
Yeah.
those things that you kind of should wait for maybe 2 or 3 weeks to see if they actually win it before you
Yeah,
put
I
it
mean,
in.
go for it the moment they do win it, but
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty good artwork, though. I mean, but man, it's going out on a limb. This was funny. The book that A.J. Brown was reading on the sideline that everyone saw the picture to, it's up 53 million% on Amazon. 53 million%.
yeah, I talked about it in our last episode.
Yeah.
It's
I'm thinking
pretty
we should
good
read
book.
it, Robbie. What do you think? Maybe we should
Yeah,
read it.
I think we should read it.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with mental toughness.
Tell the people what was the story behind this one, why he reads it.
Well, he says that it helps him center himself for when he's having drops or a bad game. It helps him refocus on excellence, bringing excellence on every play. Even when you mess up, don't let that hold you down. It has to do with mental control.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we'll
he
definitely
uses it
order it.
every time, especially when he's having a bad game. He reads this and he gets to the right place mentally, and he goes out and he catches, 80-yard bombs in traffic.
I think Amazon's very happy that this book became a phenomenon.
Yeah. So is the
And
author.
the author. Exactly. We'll have to check it out. The next one is, it's crazy how Kansas City developed the 2 best tight ends ever, Kelsey and Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
So are they kind of tight end factory now, Kansas City? They got Noah Gray now. And
Yeah, I mean, I think they've had an appreciation for tight end for a long time, and it fits with Reed. He likes that safety net for his quarterback.
mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool. It's not a big surprise.
Just from the same franchise, that they'd be the 2 best ever
Yeah.
from the same franchise. Kind of interesting. Unnecessary roughness on the Texans for breathing on Patrick Mahomes. This is the whole narrative we talked about the refs being in the pocket of the Kansas City Chiefs.
I will say there was quite an uproar this week, and partly it was because Troy Aikman was criticizing the refs in the broadcast. So I mean, that's clearly going to stir everything up if your commentators presenting the game to the public are criticizing the refs for being biased, and literally the words were, "Oh, come on," was what he said when the ref the two players hit right over Mahomes' head and missed him. They hit each other, and they called it unnecessary roughness.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, come on!" Like, clearly, he's frustrated with watching these weird, inexplicably pro Chief calls going, and they
This has
sort
been
of
going
are.
on for 3 years now, and it sounds a lot like the same people who complained about the Patriots in the old days for
I
cheating
agree.
and for refs and all this. So
Yeah,
don't you agree this is not some huge conspiracy? There's not
I
10 refs
agree.
that are on the take. on the Kansas City payroll or anything like that.
I'm open-minded to some of the conspiracies out there, political or sport related or what have you, but generally speaking, that has to be rooted in some common sense, and I just can't imagine why they'd be so blatant. I think there is a little bit of Jordan reffing going on occasionally, where they wouldn't call Jordan for a walk, but they'd call somebody else for a foul against him that they wouldn't others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about all that, but I don't think it's trying to help them win the Super Bowl or anything. I think they're just doing the best they can, and sometimes their little impartial mind kind of is calling something
But do you
that
go as
maybe
far as there's a conspiracy to make sure that Kansas City gets
no,
the Super Bowl again because they want the
no
Swifties
way.
watching and all
Taylor
that?
Swift and no, it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Not
I
in
just,
my opinion.
it's too far. It's
When
too
I
far.
read it, I literally think I'm reading, tinfoil hat in the basement
I just
people.
laugh. I just laugh.
Yeah.
So this is another one. This is funny. Cheese Hatterall helps treat frequent complaining and blaming of the refs. Great for people who can't accept their team is inferior to the Chiefs. Take 15 pills daily and increase to 87 pills during the playoffs.
That's
Sounds
funny.
pretty funny. Chiefs Haterall.
Yeah.
So it's a good kind of counter by the Chiefs to the
Yeah.
crazy conspiracy theories. This was really interesting. I did not realize this, that the last 19 QBs to lose their first Super Bowl have not made it back to the Super Bowl ever again. And that included Brock Purdy, that has included Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. You can go all the way down the line.
But you know who has? John Elway.
John Elway, yeah.
That is what's happened with what's his name? Josh Allen.
So what do you think? What do you think is the reason for this? These 19 guys who go to the Super Bowl, you got to think, okay, they'll be back a couple more times, and they never
Um,
get there. Cam
I think
Newton, Matt Ryan. I mean,
I think
on and
there's a
on.
hangover that happens to the losing team. People are more willing to leave the team and not feel that allegiance, and they will leave for more money more quickly. Super Bowl winning teams will have people leave for more money too, but you're a lot less likely to do it because you're getting endorsements and you're beloved by the city and you're doing the parade. And I think it's easier to keep the nucleus together is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's harder to keep it together when, your team loses and everyone's upset and pointing fingers at each other and the city doesn't have a parade for you.
And that includes Jared Goff, who's on this list, who you made it with the Rams and then never made it back. So I don't know.
They've
We'll have
actually
to.
proven it. It kind of reminds me of the Olympics. They've proven that the psychological effect of getting a bronze is actually better than getting a silver,
Mm-hmm. I can see
because
that.
you won something and you could have not won something. So when you're in the third, fourth game and you get a medal, you're so excited. And it's true. If you look at our women's rugby team or any of these teams that got bronze this year, they were so excited. And go talk to the team that got silver. They're usually really upset.
There's a relief to it, getting the bronze.
Yeah, getting
Yeah,
something. You're so excited. All that hard work, and I got a bronze medal. I'm so
for
excited.
sure.
And I beat a guy or a girl or a team or whatever who didn't get anything.
Yeah, that's right.
And you feel like you really achieved something.
Correct.
But if you're second, you lost. And
Right.
that's the big takeaway is you didn't get the big prize. You got a prize, but not the prize. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Even though the bronze is clearly worse than silver, the psychological effect of getting the bronze. And so I think that's what happens. The loser of the Super Bowl has a silver medal psyche. And so it's a lot easier to leave that and go chase
Mm-hmm.
money. And
Interesting.
I never want to feel that pain again kind of thing.
We'll have to watch a couple of these guys. We'll have to watch Brock Purdy and Hurts and Burrow and all these guys, see if any of them make it back. It'll be really interesting to track. Got a couple more for you here. We got the Lions have a Jared Goff problem. It's going to be very difficult for them to get to the Super Bowl with him as their QB. What's your thought on that one?
I don't agree.
Okay. Why?
Because I think he's solid and he's not the reason why they lost.
Even though he had 4 turnovers himself?
Yeah. Yeah, the defense played out of their mind against him, but he was forcing it because his defense couldn't stop Daniels.
His defense was trash.
His defense was trash because they were all backups, and it finally caught them. And they were able to steamroll through people this year, and their defense got juiced up enough to play out of their mind with backups in there.
I'm going to be
But
very
they got
interesting to watch
exposed.
him. It'll be very interesting to watch him and Sam Darnold and a couple of those guys who choked in the playoffs to see if they can turn it around next year and be.
I would much rather
be
have
elite.
Goff than Darnold.
Well, I would too.
It's not close.
I agree with that.
I think Goff is top 7.
Okay.
Top 7. And I think Darnold's top 15.
Goff cannot have games like that and win the Super Bowl. That just
I
can't
agree.
happen.
I agree. But he was going against Jayden Daniels. You could feel the vibe. You could feel him shredding the defense.
And he was absolutely on fire. So,
He was on fire. They had no sacks. They couldn't touch Daniel, and he just kept scoring. And I think Goff panicked a little and started forced throws he wouldn't have normally done.
I agree.
There's a long history of good quarterbacks struggling like that, where they get down a little bit, they start panicking.
So speaking of quarterbacks who made it to the Super Bowl and haven't made it back, Brock Purdy is now projected to sign in the offseason a 4-year, $238 million deal, or $59.7 million per. He's going to be only second to Dak Prescott. So your thoughts on this move by the 49ers, and what is it going to do to their rebuild? Because essentially they're going to have to let some players go to be able to
That's
afford
going to be
that.
terrible.
We talked about him getting maybe a Baker deal, but that looks like that's not going to happen. So
yeah, it's not going to happen. His agent's never going to stand for it, but that's what his value should be.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you overpay him like that, you're depleting Greenlaw and Warner and guys like that, as opposed to getting them help. You're actually getting rid of them and bringing in backups.
So do you agree they're going to be good, but they're going to be in somewhat of a rebuild?
Well, we knew this was the end,
rebuild.
and this is the end. I think they're in full rebuild now.
Yeah, I agree. They're
Because
going to have to
nothing points to McCaffrey being able to stay healthy. Ayuk, does he ever return to form? Debo's a year older. Their offensive line wasn't great this year, even though they have the best lineman in football.
Can they keep Kittle? Can they keep Williams? And can they keep all these
they're going to lose. They're going to lose some stars who are expensive, and they have
Probably
too many
keep
stars
Debo.
that are expensive and not enough good players, and they're not bad enough to get the kind of draft picks they need.
That's right. We'll see what happens with them. Next one is Commanders, why not us? That's the big logo apparently going all over Washington.
Yeah.
Essentially, everyone keeps wondering why we can't be the one out of the 4 who can get there. So it's kind of a good point. Why not us? I mean, all of the teams have flaws. So why can't Jaden continue to light the world on fire? We're going to find out. Jaden Daniels really got to the NFC Championship before Dak Prescott. It's kind of fun to think about that. If you think about Dak's had a real long career already. I'll see you in 2 weeks in Cancun. This is that moment you talked about last week that they had where at the end of the year, the Lions knocked the Vikings off for the number 1 seed. And on the field after the game, he essentially told O'Donnell, we'll see you in 2 weeks, meaning we'll see you in the playoffs. And so, of course, you tack on in Cancun to that. What's your thought about that kind of boastful thing that he did there?
Well, I think it's not quite – it's disingenuous because Dan Campbell was saying we're not going to play, but we're going to play in 2 weeks, and we expect you'll be able to win there. It was a compliment to the Vikings. So I don't hold that against Dan Campbell at all. What he was saying is we think that you'll win because we have a lot of respect for you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks because we have a bye. We're going to sit back and make it to 2 weeks. It wasn't some boast. It was a compliment to Minnesota.
Right.
We think you can handle business. Now, they couldn't. They lost. But he thought
Do
that
you
he
think,
believed
do you
in
think
me.
it was a respectful thing?
It
Essentially,
was
we're
a
both
total
going to be.
respect
Yeah,
play. Absolutely.
yeah.
We'll see you in 2 weeks because I think your squad is that good.
Meaning you, Minnesota, will win in the first round, and so
Correct.
yeah, we'll have
And
a
he
shot
was
at each
wrong.
other.
He
Yeah,
was wrong. But
right,
he was saying, we'll see you then because we think you're going to win
right.
because we feel like you're a really good team.
Well, there's a
So
lot of
oddly
good
enough,
coaches.
NFC North was 0-3 in the playoffs.
What's funny is that division is really good with a lot of good coaches, a lot of good quarterbacks. And you're right,
Yeah,
they were 0-3. They were very disappointing in
0-3.
this one. This is
Very
interesting.
disappointing.
The road to three-peat, Chiefs Kingdom's quest for greatness. To me, whether they three-peat this year or not, they've already made a dynasty. They've already been great. I mean, Mahomes has 3 rings already. This would be his 4th, but 3rd in a row. So, what are your thoughts? It's not like he has to win
So
this year to be
it's
great.
definitely possible now with the Lions and the
Ravens,
Ravens out. Okay,
right?
those are the 2 best teams in football. They're eliminated. So
So
that really
they have a
opens
shot. They have a shot.
the door. The remaining 2 best teams. So there was 5 teams that I think had a legitimate shot at winning the Super Bowl this year: the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Lions, the Ravens, and the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I agree.
2 opponents out of the 4 remain, and the Eagles are dealing with injuries, and the Chiefs facing a Bills team that is playing really well and is balanced, but doesn't have a lot of stars that make you
The
scared. So
Chiefs have the best defense left in the 4. So,
the Chiefs have the best defense left.
yeah.
They have the best coach left, and they have the best quarterback left. That's a scary combination.
Mm-hmm. For
So
sure.
I could see them winning it all now, whereas I couldn't at the beginning of the year because I didn't think they could get through all these good teams. But 2 of the 4 best teams are gone now. So
Yeah.
I rethink the Chiefs a little bit.
Yep. That makes sense. This one's Jayden Daniels has won 2 playoff games, which is the same or more than Dak, Kirk, Justin, Kyler, and Tua. Any thought about his comparison to that group of 5?
I mean, there's no comparison.
He's better than all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not even really that close.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think this is not surprising. I think with the talent he's got and a team that's building with a better GM, a better coach, a really great coordinator, this is not that surprising. The
Right.
year he's having is surprising, but yeah.
I
Those
just
teams.
remembered the name, Khalil Mack.
Oh, Khalil Mack. Yeah,
Khalil Mack and Aaron Donald were the 2 that are sort of fading out and retired now. And I think Verse and Carter are the 2 new Khalil Mack and Aaron Donald.
for sure. Yeah, no doubt. Verse is unbelievable. I mean, he's going to be a Pro Bowler for the next 10 years. So, last one here, we have Justin Jefferson, LSU, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State, Jamar Chase, LSU, Terry McLaurin, Ohio State, Malik Neighbors, LSU, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ohio State, Brian Thomas, LSU, and Chris Olave, Ohio State. So essentially, if you're a great NFL receiver, you're probably from one of those 2 schools. You
Yep.
talk about like wide receiver factories. And we're looking at the Ohio State team this year with 3 more NFL guys coming. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yep.
All right, Robbie, I'm going to hand it over to you for the news and mailbag segment for this week.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit light on news this week. Just got a couple nice little things. Ben Johnson has been hired as the Chicago Bears head coach,
I saw that.
and it's been really interesting hearing the breakdown on where people think the success or the lack of that he'll have, the advantages and the disadvantages of his being picked for that program, et cetera. I think generally speaking, it's a good pick. Caleb Williams definitely made an announcement that he would love it if their next coach was an offensive mind. So he did not want Mike Tomlin. So or Belichick. So it was pretty clear he wanted somebody who could put together a really sweet offensive game plan and help develop him. And they are talking to a previous Dennis Allen from the Saints.
They already announced
defense
that he
coordinator.
hired him today. So apparently
Yeah.
he's their new
I know that
defense
it's really
coordinator.
close if it hasn't happened already.
That's a pretty good matchup with him
Yeah.
and
They
Ben.
knew they needed to have a real strong defensive coordinator, so
Mhm.
that's a pretty good matchup. Another piece of info: Ohio State quarterback Devin Brown is transferring to Cal, so that's going to
Interesting.
hurt them a little bit in the depth department.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for my little news this week, other than the things we've covered.
Interesting. Only other kind of rumor we've heard is that the Deion Sanders to Dallas rumors continue. They had a second meeting essentially on the tarmac in Dallas. So on Jerry Jones' plane. So that's the second time they've met about the head coaching job. So it seems like it's getting a little closer now. We'll see.
Yeah. And one other thing's fun. Tom Brady gave the LFG award. He gave it to Jayden Daniels. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Let's effing go.
It's effing go, yeah.
Yeah.
What's
So he's
funny
got
is
the LFG
you
award.
see Jaden Daniels when he got it from him, he asked him on air, what does that mean?
What does it mean? And he said, it's inappropriate.
He said, I can't tell you because this is a family show.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's pretty funny. LFG.
But I think he definitely deserved it. So there you go. And it was light for news this week. I didn't go digging too much, but those were a couple of the things that jumped out at me. I was just enthralled at the games. That was really, really what grabbed me this week. And nice picture of me, by the way. Pretty embarrassing, but is what it is.
Yeah.
You always got a doozy for me. Okay, let's go to the mailbag. First one is Notre Dame versus Ohio State. This is going to be legendary, from Leela Rico. How do you feel about that comment?
Thanks, Leela. We agree, and it was a great game. I hope you enjoyed it. We were really looking forward to it, and hopefully this is just the beginning of what is the golden age of college football. I really believe it is, with the college football playoff being the real centerpiece of the sport now.
Yeah, there's all kinds of rumors swirling around about the ACC might be dropping its they're going to have their championship game between the second and third best teams in the conference. First is going to get an automatic bye.
Mm-hmm.
And so second and third is going to go to the championship play in Charlotte, and that winner will go to the playoffs. So
there's also a proposal on the table. They're going to merge the ACC and the SEC and merge the Big 12 and the Big 10 into two mega conferences that will act like the AFC and NFC, and they'll essentially become like the new NFL. Be NFL light, and the ACC, SEC will be in the same bracket, and Big 10 and Big 12 will be in the same bracket. So that would be really interesting if that happens.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they're talking about getting rid of the Power 5 or at-large guys.
Right. And then the college football playoff would turn into the playoffs just like the NFL has, with the two NFL playoff on either bracket meeting in what's called the College Bowl. Instead of the Super Bowl, it'd be the College Bowl. So
yeah. So next mailbag. Both teams had an incredible season. May the best man win. Best team win. At Marzell.
Yeah, completely agree. That's what we want, right? We want the best two teams, and we want the competition to be fair, and then both to play their best, and it come down to kind of a one-score game, and that's basically what we got. So
I felt like the coaches did a really excellent job of getting the most out of their players and putting them in a position for success and making them believe. And I think there's something to the fact that they were strong Christian believers in their ability to just stay to the program and not get down. You didn't see bad body language on either side. When either one team got out to a huge lead, you didn't see bad body language from Notre Dame. And when Notre Dame started mounting a comeback, you didn't see bad body language and finger pointing from Ohio State.
Right.
they were very, staying focused and taking their lumps and
You also
letting
did you notice that the two coaches really respected each other? They appeared in a pre-game interview together with Pat McAfee. It was a really good interview, and they sat next to each other, respected each other, put their arms around each other. So there's really like a camaraderie there.
yeah, I think
And
it's easy.
you saw that in the game. There wasn't a lot of pushing and shoving. There was no fighting. It was just a well fought, tough, physical game that was for the
Yeah.
championship. So that was really good to see. The other thing
Yeah,
I
there wasn't
mentioned,
anything
Freeman.
cheap in it. Yeah.
I mentioned Freeman was playing his alma mater. That must have been kind of strange because he was a longtime linebacker for the Buckeyes and was one of their best players and actually played in 2 national title games, lost both of them, was 0-2. So he's now 0-3 in national title games, which is unfortunate.
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. Okay, next one. The Sports Guys always deliver top-notch analysis. Can't wait to see who they pick to win this epic battle. Obviously, they wrote that before they heard our whole segment on who we thought was going to win.
Right.
That is at Mike Bernhardt.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you're listening. I'm glad you're hanging on who we're going to pick. And sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong. This time we both got it right. We both picked Ohio State because of the talent gap. So, but yeah, thanks for watching and thanks for commenting. Drop us another one.
Yeah. And then this is from a previous episode, the one before with the NFL preview. This episode was full of great insights. Keep it up, at Fabian.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Fabian. Yeah, we do the best we can to do the research and bring as much as we can to you so that it's interesting and that we get you on point for the next games coming up.
Yep. And that's it.
Oh, that's awesome, Robbie. Thanks for sharing those.
Awesome weekend, that's for sure.
Well, Robbie, last thoughts, man, as we head into epic kind of semifinal games weekend in the NFL. College football is now wrapped up. Our next episode, we're going to be talking about some basketball. We're going to go into the NBA and college basketball and kind of see where those 2 seasons are going so far. We've been so focused on football for 2 months that it's time to turn back to the basketball leagues and see where they stand. But any thoughts going into these 2?
And then we have a lot of cool different directions we're going to go with sports going forward too, not just basketball, but we are going to start getting geeked up a little bit, ready for March Madness. We got to get ourselves situated that way. But a lot of cool sports are coming down the pike that we're going to present to you guys and bring forward.
Yeah, we got these 2 great games to look forward to on Sunday. I'm looking forward to both, and we'll report to you guys next Monday on both of those. We're going to really break them down in intimate detail, including we're going to get into some of the defensive stats, which we don't always get into, but this time we're going to really break down the defensive stats as well. So it'll be a lot of fun next week. So it'll be a lot of fun, Robbie. Any final thoughts for the crew?
No, just thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. I know there's a lot of content out there that you can consume in every direction. And the fact that you landed here with us, we really, really appreciate it. And thanks for staying with us. Love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. Hopefully the weatherman's going to be delivering no snow on game day. That would be nice. But I definitely think it's interesting when you add that element in. And I hope that we see the stars shine brightly out there on the field and that everybody's safe and that you can have explosive offensive and defensive plays that determine the outcome. All this hard preparation that they're doing right now, it's pretty cool to see it in action. And we love seeing where we're wildly wrong on our picks, but also sometimes we're right. And a lot of it's just a matter of the bounce of a ball sometimes. So that's the fun part. But enjoy the games, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
I would just say quickly, coming up after football season concludes, we've got a lot of cool episodes queued up that are non-football related. We got the Strange but Cool Sports Part 3 coming up. I know you guys love the first 2. And we're going to have the American football and rugby and bocce. We're going to have episodes on all 3 of those, the history of the game, the rules of the game. That'll be a lot of fun coming your way. So be looking for a lot of cool, interesting content that we're going to do after the conclusion of football season. So look forward to bringing those to you. And like this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you do the subscriber challenge. Drop us in the comments down below who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. or even the games this weekend. So, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next time on the Sports Guys. Have a great night.
Appreciate it.